changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. It's Tip Tuesday, when we talk about an easy-to-implement, life-changing tip from one of our stories. Today's tip is super easy and very effective. It's from a story called It's Not the End of the World by one of our regular writers, April Knight. And it was published in a very cool book. It's a book we made with Dr. Jeff Brown of Harvard Medical School and health writer Liz Neperit. And the book is called Chicken Soup for the Soul, Say Goodbye to Stress. So you're going to be hearing a doctor-approved tip for reducing stress. So April tells us in her story that she was always nervous, even as a child. She would break out in hives over things that other children just took right in stride. April was desperately anxious to please people, and if she did something wrong, she would get really mad at herself. When she was 5 and she was about to play in a piano recital, she ended up getting violently ill right on the stage. And a few years later, during a school play, she got so nervous that she walked off the stage and took a nosedive into the audience. So April became afraid that more things like this would happen, and she started avoiding any situation where she might fail, even normal social events. She always worried that she would say the wrong thing or spill something or somehow make a fool of herself. But avoiding the world didn't actually solve any problems for April. It just turned her into a lonely person who still worried about everything. Then one day, April was out walking to the store, and she tripped over the curb and fell on her knee. An elderly man came to her aid, and he helped her up, and he asked if she was hurt. And then that man said something that changed April's life. He said, "Well, if you didn't break your knees, then it isn't the end of the world, is it? There's no reason to be embarrassed. We all fall down sometimes. You're okay now." He said that, and he walked away. And this completely changed April's world. Suddenly, everything was put in perspective for her. It wasn't the end of the world. Nothing that had ever happened to her was the end of the world. Now, you might not feel this is relevant to you if you're not an outsized worrier like April was. But if you're like me, and you don't worry like April, but you still do worry about more normal things like, how are you going to get all your work done? Or what might go wrong on your vacation? Or whether you're prepared for that meeting that's coming up? Then April's next epiphany is for you. April realized that virtually all the things she was worrying about hadn't happened yet. They were all future possibilities. Not even future probabilities, just possibilities. And April did something really smart then, something that you might find useful, doable, and easy. She began writing down the things that were troubling her the most: debts, family problems, the funny noise under the hood of her car. No matter how big or how small the problem was, she'd write it on a piece of paper and put the piece of paper in a box. And then on the last day of the month, she'd open the box and read the list of problems she had anticipated might happen. April ended up learning that most of these problems never happened, or if they did, they turned out not to be a big deal. Over time, April put fewer and fewer notes into that box that she called her worry box. And now some months the box stays empty. She still thinks about what might go wrong, but now she puts those worries in perspective and she realizes they're not that big a deal. And now every time that a new problem comes along, April just says to herself, is it potentially the end of the world? And the answer is always a resounding no. Now, tomorrow's Wow Wednesday, so no lessons on Wow Wednesdays. Instead, I'm going to share a story with you that will make you wonder, how did that happen? And I promise you'll be more willing to listen to your mother after you listen to tomorrow's podcast. I'm Amy Newmark, and I want to thank you for listening to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast today. If you'd like to order the book I mentioned, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Say Goodbye to Stress, please go to our website, chickensoup.com. And if you have any comments about our podcast, please shoot me an email at amy@chickensoupforthesoul.com. And also, please rate and review our podcast on the iTunes page.